All right. Good morning, all. Good to see you all again. It's just going to be me today. Joni was fortunate enough to get on vacation, so I'll take it through the last part of this today. So let me get through the mandatory stuff, and we'll get rolling. Today's webinar is hosted by DBHR through the Washington State Healthcare Authority. This is an interactive training. We encourage you to ask questions and participate throughout the session. The slides, as well as a link to the recording of this webinar, will be sent by email after this presentation. The use of automatic note-taking bots or other tools requires prior approval. Unauthorized use of such tools is prohibited to ensure the privacy and confidentiality of all attendees. Any recording that's created through AI is not recognized as an official recording of this session. We reserve the right to exit trainees from the session if they are using AI to take notes without prior approval or using AI to record this session. So here we are at the end of quite a journey. Some of you have been with us since the very beginning. Some of you have come in more recently. So this is the last of six of this community that we've put together following the four trainings we did at the end of last year. So today we're going to be talking about and reviewing stages of change. Not exactly motivational interviewing, but something that fits in very well to it. In fact, I think the two work very well together. I refer to stages of change as diagnosing change. It's more diagnosing where someone is in the change process than, say, diagnosing a mental illness or something along those lines. So, as usual, feel free to jump in the chat and tell us your name, tell us where you work, tell us how you got here, or something about yourself. That's always welcome. I'll be looking at the chat from time to time, and you can also put questions in the Q&A as well. Or you're also welcome to unmute yourself and just chip in as well. That's always a good thing. So first thing I wanted to do before we get rolling is just to get an update. If anybody wants to share how things are going, whether the work with um, the OR stuff that we've been covering the last two sessions has been helpful. If you've hit any, if you've hit any barriers or had any difficulty, that I definitely want to hear about. But I also want to hear about any wins as well. So if things are going well for you. So feel free. You can either unmute and jump in or feel free to throw something in the chat. And off topic, I don't know how the weather is out by you guys. We're doing 99 and 98 out here, so it's a little unpleasant these days. So if it looks like I'm hiding inside in the air conditioning, it's because I am.
I guess I've been having a challenge with, I think I shared about this individual before. Been working with him for about a year. Was doing well, was meeting all his goals. Um, and then the last goal was to get his house. And I think that was his last goal. And then his cravings started kicking in, and then
Mm,
then he got lost in contact. And I communicated with him yesterday. It was brief, but yeah, he's in active use right now, and that's kind of a challenge for me. How to
so how is he? What kind of emotional place is he in right now? What does he like to talk to? What's going on for him?
I don't think, my personal opinion, I don't think he's in a good emotional spot because he's drinking,
Yeah.
and so it was hard to communicate. He said he would reach out. I didn't want to poke at him too
Yeah.
much.
Yep.
And this
Actually,
was this was over the phone as well.
yep. This is perfect because one of the stages of change we're going to be talking about is relapse or recycle. And that's what you do when someone sort of moves backward through the stages of change. A lot of what we talk about is movement forward as people progress,
Mhm.
but very, very significant critical piece when someone, because this is what happens in a change process. It isn't point A, point B. It's, one step forward, two steps back. And part of what we want to do is normalize that, but we're going to talk about that specifically when we get to the rehab, the relapse stage for sure.
Okay.
So just to get more specific, if anyone, we've been using that OR sheet for a while. It's something that I've gotten a lot of use out of, and if you've gotten some use out of it, if it's been helpful um, for you, let us know. All right. So again, I'm hoping this is a review, but I know we picked people up on all points of the curve during the training and during this community. So I'm going to just take it from the top and review this. Here's what I'd like you to do, because I'm guessing you've heard this before, is I want you to think about this for yourself. I want you to think about a change process that you've been in or maybe in right now that might represent each of these stages as I talk about it. I'm going to ask you to put your clients out of your mind for a little bit. I know that's usually a good place to start, but I like to try this on and see how this fits for you. And then we'll see about how we're going to be, then we'll work on fitting it in with the clients later. So I'm going to review quickly each of these stages from pre-contemplation all the way around. And I want you to think just for a moment about yourself and think about a change process that you're in, somewhere where you might be in that stage. And if you have any questions about it, if you're not sure and you want to share or ask a question about it, I welcome you to do so. And again, we're going to talk about all the movement forward from pre-contemplation through maintenance, but we're also going to specifically talk to David's point about relapse and how to approach people in each of these stages. So starting out with pre-contemplation, the classic is I don't have a problem. The person either doesn't feel like they have a problem at all, or they have a completely different definition of what's going on um, than maybe the rest of us do. Pretty much encapsulated by the phrase, I don't have a problem. There's a variant of I've heard this referred to as anti-contemplation, which I think is pretty cool. Somebody doesn't even want to think about it. The other trick about pre-contemplation can be if someone is acting like they have a problem, they just never get to do anything about it. You might get the feeling they're just telling you that they're interested in change just to kind of string you along, or there may be some other reason. So if you were checking in with yourself about something that you're in pre-contemplation about, is there something, and this is rhetorical, um, is there an issue that maybe people around you have brought to your attention and you're just not really hearing it? You don't want to hear, what they have to say about what this thing is. And not only do you not want to take it in, but you don't even want to hear about it in the news or read a story about it. For example, just an example off the top, if someone is in pre-contemplation about diabetes, not only don't they want to hear about the idea that they might have diabetes, they don't want to see a news article about diabetes. They don't want to see a commercial for a drug about it. They're just pushing it away so that they don't have to think about it and don't have to worry about it. And of course, that doesn't address the problem, but as we'll see, there's probably a very good reason why the person is in that place. So if people around you have talked to you about something, you're not really hearing it, don't want to hear about it, that's probably where pre-contemplation is. The next step is contemplation. And contemplation is I have a problem, but I don't know what to do about it. We referred to this previously as the but stage, 1T and but, where you're just thinking about, I want to do this, but there's a reason to not do it. So much like we talked about with the double-sided reflections, that's right where contemplation is. You can see both sides of the issue. I want to eat healthier, but organic food is really expensive. I want to quit smoking, but I have a very stressful job. Uh, I want to quit drinking, but I can't talk to people unless I've been drinking. I can't handle social situations. So that person's really stuck in that place. So for you, if there's a situation, there's something that you want to do, but there's a reason that it hasn't happened yet, that may be contemplation. And what Joni will always say is Joni is a big fan of using instead of but and saying, look, both of these things are true. So how do you negotiate these things? Healthy food may be more expensive. So how do you manage that? Many of us can stay in contemplation for a very long time, years even. And then we move into preparation, and this is where the plan happens. This is the blueprint for change. And we got to do the blueprint, as we'll see. The blueprint is very important for the change initiative. So, is there an element of change in your own life where you're putting the plan together. You haven't taken the steps yet, haven't done it yet, but you're building the blueprint before that change actually happens. And interestingly enough, this is the one that we skip a lot with our clients. A lot of times with our clients, we've been waiting for them to go, 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 go. And then when they finally do give us a little bit of impetus that they want to make a change, we go right into action. And sometimes that's a mistake. Sometimes it's good to pump the brakes. If they're not willing to make the plan, they're not going to be able to carry it out. And changes without the plan tend not to last very long. And as we'll see, this plan is something that we'll refer back to. Next up is the action stage. And the action stage is where that's that first day on the diet, first day not smoking, first day going to the gym. I'm working on it and it's difficult. It takes a lot of effort. There's a lot of stress involved, and there's a lot of pushback. Even though the change has a good thing to it, there is a lot of pushback. Even a healthy change has pushback. And whatever was keeping that habit, that target behavior around, now it's going to come calling. I love giving the examples of this because I've used every excuse to not go to the gym known to man. I could probably publish a book out of it. I had the wrong socks on. I had to go home to make a cell phone call. You name it, I've said it. And that just shows how hard this good habit is to get rolling. And it's tough for our clients as well. So you may be in an action stage in some sort of change initiative right now. There may be something that you just put into practice and got going. Next up is maintenance. Now, maintenance, according to the book, they say that it's about 6 months. And that has not been my experience. I think our habits are way too varied for it to fit. I love asking people who've quit smoking for a long time, when did it get easier? Some people say it never gets easier. Some people say it got easier after a couple of weeks. I know for me, if I get on a good roll for a couple of weeks, I'm usually in pretty good shape. I'll hold out for a while at that point. But the significant part isn't the time period, it's that it gets easier. You're on a roll, you've got a good habit, you're seeing some of the benefits of the change, and so it's easier to do. And then next up is what's historically been called relapsing, but that word has gotten kind of messy because people aren't very clear if it means an addiction relapse, a psychiatric symptom relapse. Um, and in an effort to normalize it, they started using the word recycling as we're kind of expected to cycle through. You know, we learn how to succeed by failing, basically. Each time we fail, we learn something about how to succeed. So this is sort of captured by, and I think David gave an example where, you know, this person's in a situation where they say, okay, I messed up and now here I am. And just because you know you messed up doesn't mean you're able to pull out of it right away. You might still be stuck in it for a bit. And then this is movement backwards through the cycle. So um, people get stuck in this pattern. And some of the hallmarks of this, and this is what I asked David about, some of the things that we have to deal with right off the bat in this stage is people have feeling defeated, feeling like they failed, feeling like they want to abandon the change process. They might be angry at themselves. They might be angry at you. They might blame you for not, they might blame anybody around them for not supporting them sufficiently. So usually one of the first things in this stage to deal with is to deal with the fallout from the relapse or from the recycle. So before I go forward, did anybody have any examples or do you have a question about, well, wait a minute, I don't know if I'm in this stage or that stage. There's something that I'm stuck between. I wanted to give you an opportunity to say something before we move on to the role of relapse. So if you have either you or if you have a client or somebody that you feel is stuck in a certain place, now would be a time to bring that up.
I think I'm on contemplation on the vape pens.
Ah,
Uh, I was just thinking about it this morning. I was thinking about tossing it in the trash. But then I said, no, I'll just hold on to it. I start feeling my throat. I got
Mm,
plenty of reasons why to stop it, but I keep holding on, and I'll just wait. I'll wait. I'm in a contemplation on that.
yep. So you're kind of seeing the both sides of it. Okay, I want to do it for
Mm,
this reason. I want to stop it for that reason.
yeah.
No, 100%. That sounds like contemplation. And it doesn't sound like we're quite ready to go into the plan yet. Like, of course, so me, we talked about the writing reflex of motivational interviewing. Now, the first thing I want to do is get you right into that next stage. Okay, let's get into planning. Let's get a plan together. Let's get it going. But it's important for me to slow my roll at that point. I haven't heard what's going on with you yet. I haven't heard what's causing the push forward and what's causing the pull back. Until I do that, I don't want to take that step yet because I don't know what the resistance is. There might be a lot of stress that you're dealing with. There might be something else going on. So that's the part where motivational interviewing prompts listening instead of let's go right into change. Like I know which way I want you to go with it,
Mm.
but that doesn't make it the best idea. So that's a great example. Anybody else? All right. So this graphic that you're seeing now is of a little different way of looking at the stages. So you kind of work in here from left to right. So people tend to start out in pre-contemplation, move into contemplation, move into preparation. And again, not so neatly we go from left to right. And then ultimately, hopefully, we get to a place of maintenance where we make the change and it gets easier. Two very common paths of relapse, and I think David may have described one of these. Relapse is any movement basically from right to left. The two most common ones that are indicated by the blue arrows here are movement out of action back into an earlier stage. So back into preparation or back into contemplation. What usually happens, and I'm wondering if David's guy is in this position, he tried to do something to quit drinking, and now he's viewed it as it didn't work. It failed, or I failed. And now he's back again in contemplation where, okay, now I don't know what to do about this again. This also sounds like me through numerous diets. I try a diet, it doesn't work. I have a relapse, and then I go back and say, well, that didn't work, and then I just stop. The goal, what we're trying to do, is move from the big blue arrow back to contemplation to the one in preparation. And this is where the plan is really important. If you have a written plan, if I sit with David and we talk about what are the pros and cons of change, what are all the reasons he wants to stop vaping, what are the reasons that are keeping him vaping, or talking about his client and the drinking, from that's where we start the beginning of the change plan. So how can we set down a longer term change plan so it isn't just a daily battle between yes and no? So if you have that plan, you can then work that person back to preparation instead of contemplation so they don't feel like they're starting over again and they don't have to quit, the whole change process altogether. You don't fail until you stop trying, says the old saying. So another interesting thing about relapse is kind of a gift because it gives you a lesson as to why what work still has to be done for the change. So what still has to happen? The client isn't done yet. There's still some work he needs to do in his recovery to be able to move forward. Now, obviously, we got to survive the relapse. That's the important thing, and not everybody does. But a relapse, no matter what it is, whether it's diet or smoking or vaping or drinking or whatever it is, it has an opportunity for you to learn and be able to move forward. And again, we're trying to keep the people in the game. I'd rather tweak the change process than throw it out or have the person just stop altogether. So, anybody have any questions about that? There's a couple things going on there. So, this slide has options for once you know what stage that person's in. Once you know what stage they're in, there's a specific group of interventions that you can use. So if someone is in pre-contemplation and that's the I don't have a problem, instead of coming in, let's not argue with them about it. Let's not clash with them about it. Let's hear them out. What's their version of the story? What's their way they're looking at it? We're not reinforcing it by having them say it. We're just, hearing them out and trying to figure out where the resistance is coming from. What is it that's unique to them that's making this difficult, or I should say ambivalence, what we usually call it in motivational interviewing. If the person is in contemplation, just like we were just saying, what's the reason for change? What are the reasons against change? Let's get that payoff matrix going and see, what that person sees as being the good side of change, the bad side of change, the good side of staying the same, and the bad side of staying the same. You also want to find out what they tried before. Preparation in the middle here in the yellow, this is the plan. What are all the details of the plan? The what, the when, the where, the how. And I love asking this question. This is a product of me working in the ER way too long. How would this fail? Clients can tell you how they think this is going to fail. It's failed before. So if we know that right off the bat, maybe we can normalize and prepare for it when it happens. And we'll talk about that more when we get into the relapse recycling again. The action, this is the stuff that we've been taught. 90% of the interventions that we learned in school and since then are all about being able to help someone who's already in the action stage. Motivational interviewing is much more geared toward these red and orange and even the yellow stage here. But this green, this is home base for us. Here are the tactics, here are the techniques, whether it's skill building, enlisting people's supports, the cognitive behavioral, and all the other different types of interventions that we have to help move people when they're in the action stage. And then the maintenance stage, which is a kind of underrated stage. People treat maintenance as if a person's finished at that point, and they're really not finished at that point. Even people that have been, I know that there's some research that shows that people who've been in Alcoholics Anonymous for 8 to 12 years, there's a lot of people that relapse and fall out of program during that time. So even when you've had a change initiative that's gone on as long as 8 years, that you're still technically at risk. And the idea is that if you have some momentum, if you've made some progress on a change, then what you want to do is move it forward. What's the next thing? Is there some self-care thing that you can take on? What's the next piece that you can move forward to keep that momentum happening? Because otherwise, if a wise man once told me, if you're not moving forward, you're sliding back. And you may not even feel it at first, but then the backslide begins. So what's the next change going to be? This next one in here is the classic 12th step, help someone else with the same problem. Helping someone else with the same problem helps keep you in tune with your own recovery and helps keep you moving forward. And then likewise, the social supports. The biggest challenge that I see with maintenance is that people stop. People just decide they're better and they stop doing what works. They fix what isn't broken. I don't have data to back this up, but working in the emergency room, lots of people stop medication at the 1 year mark. They take medication, they feel better, for about a year, and then they say, okay, I'm better, I don't need this anymore, and they stop. And then a lot of times what they didn't realize was the medication was helping to make them better. And then they end up having symptom rebound, and we kind of start all over again. And this is understandable. If, God forbid, if you had a seizure and someone gave you medication for a seizure and you didn't have any more seizures, how long would you take the medication? Would you just take it forever to keep the seizures away? Or at a certain point, would you do what most people would do and, stop the medication? Preferably you talk to the doc and work it out, but not everybody does that. So the last element of this is what happens when someone relapses and they're moving backwards through the stages. And to me, the interventions, first off, are uh, to deal with the emotions that come up with it. As we mentioned before, a person may be angry, they may be blaming, they may feel defeated. And the first thing is to not feed into that, to not feed into you did something wrong, We want to normalize it as much as possible. This happens, not everybody just stops whatever this thing is right off the bat. This habit has been here for a while. So first we deal with the emotions. The other part of it is you're still there for them. You're not going anywhere. I think there's a lesson that if people mess up, they're going to get abandoned. And I think that's one of the things that really drives the fear of failure. I'm going to fail and people are going to leave me alone. You're not going anywhere. You're still there for them. Gita made an excellent point regarding withdrawal symptoms for medications. It can be extremely dangerous to stop medications all at once, both in terms of symptom rebound and then also physical complications from the meds. So that's an excellent point. So
I
again,
think my guy, he felt that abandonment because he was in a recovery home
mhm.
program, and and he was honest about what he was doing. Uh, and that night, packed the bags, and then left them alone for the weekend in the motel.
Mm,
And that like
that
that
hit.
was one thing he said. Yeah, and then now, and then while you're under the influence, you play on your phone and you're causing a bunch of havoc with your friends. And so yeah, you kind of burn your bridges in
You
that
burn your bridges,
sense,
right?
and now you're all alone
Yep.
in your
But
mess.
all the more important, a critical message, you're not going anywhere.
Mhm.
You're not dumping that person just because they made a bad decision or they backslid. You're not going anywhere. I think that's a really important point to make. I think that's a big piece of the therapeutic relationship and that unconditional positive regard. I'm not just here for you when you're doing well. I'm here for you when things aren't working out so well. So I think the first part of dealing with relapse is dealing with that um, emotional aspect of it. And then the next part is where's the learning? Where do we rebuild? Now, I don't think David's guy is here yet. If you're still in active use and you're still, you're at the point now where how do I go 1 hour without this? When one day at a time doesn't make it, how does 1 hour at a time do it or 1 minute at a time? What are you going to do to stop the bleeding, as the case may be? How are we going to get it right again? How are we going to turn it around? And we know you can do it because you've done it before. And then the next piece of that is what do we learn from this? Where's the lesson? Um, I'm willing to bet that anything really bad that's happened to you in your life had a valuable lesson in it. Sometimes some of the best lessons you learn in your life are a product of some very hard learning. And in recovery, mental health recovery and addictions recovery, that's one of the ways you learn, unfortunately, the hard way. So to me, those are the three big pieces. You're not going anywhere. Help them process the emotions of it. Don't feed into the anger. Don't feed into the disappointment. Don't feed in that. You have to do what you have to do to turn this around, but we're not going to pile on to make the person feel worse. And then where's the lesson? The goal is that a relapse makes your recovery stronger. I mean, that's the goal that we're shooting for. Yeah, I see Sierra's point about having the room to fail. You can't succeed if you don't have the ability to fail. The other one, and thank you for reminding me of this, Sierra, is we used to have this point because we used to see people in the emergency room, and if they didn't relapse as badly, even the idea that you just caught it earlier. We had people that had life-threatening suicide attempts, but then they would start coming in when they were thinking about suicide, and they always viewed it as a defeat or a failure. We said, no, it isn't. You came in this time when you were thinking about it. You didn't do anything. That's progress. As we mentioned before with the affirmations, there's no progress that's too small to acknowledge or to reach out to. So David's point that this guy's being honest about what's going on, that's a good point. You know, okay, you're honest. You're talking about what you're doing and all that. We can build on that and go forward. That stops the bottom from completely falling out.
Yeah, we don't use the word failure, right?
Right.
Fail.
Nope.
If they use the word fail, because I do hear that word fail. I failed. I failed. So
Yeah.
you didn't fail. You're making progress.
Yeah, I always say you don't fail until you stop trying. That's when the fail is. As long as you're still in there and you're still fighting, the clock is still going. You're still working on it. Might not be going so great. The game might not be going so well, but you're still playing. And that's the important part of it. Um, no, I think that's a really critical piece. As we mentioned before, how we talk about change is sometimes very self-defeating. We say, oh, well, I'm going to lose 30 pounds. Well, how are you going to lose 30 pounds? You ever done that before? That's really hard. Or if somebody has one cigarette, do they throw out the whole change plan now? Oh, I relapsed once. Now it's over. No, 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 no. That's a warning sign. So what happened that set that off? And what can we do right now to course correct? We're still in the game. You know, the fail and throwing up your hands is when somebody says the heck with it. And, that's where what did they say? The lapse becomes the relapse or the slip becomes the fall. It doesn't have to go all the way out. You can course correct part of the way into it.
I could probably learn from that too, because during the year there was there was a slip, and then we talked about it. But then like a month later there was another slip,
Hmm.
and then we talked about it, and then a full blown
Yeah.
relapse. And so it maybe somewhere during those slips there could have been maybe some more for me as far as how I could have went about it probably a little better. I don't remember how it went, but yeah, maybe focus on
Yeah.
that slip a little bit.
There's an old saying of there's an old saying that 100 wrong decisions get made before the relapse happens. So there's all these kind of warning signs that happen. And the problem is we're not so good at catching all those warning signs when they happen. It's when the behavior comes. That's when we know, okay, something happened. But like I say, our smoke alarm gets a little better. I don't know. Any of you guys have the smoke alarm that goes off every time you get going cooking, and it's a nuisance, but at the same time, it's doing its job. Um, if you don't have the smoke alarm doesn't ever go off, it's not very helpful. So we want to have a decent smoke alarm. But just like you said, when very often when people are on their way back into a relapse, it's 100 little steps. And many of those little steps might have nothing to do with the target behavior. It might just be something about their hygiene, or it might just be something about their sleep, or just something, some sort of distress. And then this is where it comes. So how do we catch it early? And I saw some of the points earlier about, how we build people up with praise, how we keep them moving forward. Um, and then being able to course correct when you're in that early stage before it goes all the way. Even the fact that it doesn't go all the way right at the beginning is a good sign. Very often relapses are like 100% right off the bat. If you've got those little points on the curve, like those little slips, that's actually good. Those are a couple chances to turn things around before, it gets all the way to that big point. So before we move on from this one, so any questions or any examples of any clients that you've worked with, or any questions about what you're seeing right here regarding matching these interventions to your stage of change?
I had a client who recognizes that they had an issue,
Hmm.
but in the preparation stage, it keeps them from moving on to the action because of fear. So if I acknowledge I have a
Mm,
substance abuse issue, I may lose the custody of my children.
right.
So you're revealing to me what's really going on with you. You recognize it, but how do we help them get over the fear to lead them into the action phase?
Hmm. So if I heard you properly, you mentioned that this person admitting that they have an addiction
Mm-hmm.
threaten the situation with their children, the custody of their children.
Mm-hmm.
So, so my first thought is it's actually the addiction that's going to do that, not their awareness of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if this person decided to stay in pre-contemplation, it's probably going to move in the direction toward that person losing their kids because that person's going to continue to drink or continue to use, and that's going to
Mhm.
happen. But I heard what you said about the fear of being able to face it.
And also the fear of actually going to the doctors to see what's going on because you recognize that you're now experiencing physical symptoms
Yeah, okay.
and you're trying, but you can't do it on
Mm-hmm.
your own. But the fear is keeping you from doing what's best for you and your children.
100%. 100%. So going into that fear of, okay, so let's play this one out. Let's play this all the way forward. If you do this, what are the things that are going to happen? What pathway is going to happen? Because obviously, if she chooses not to acknowledge this and not to do anything about it, she's just going to continue to move forward on the path that she's on, right?
Right.
But the whole idea of having to break out of it, and admit, or what I'm trying not to go too 12 steps here, but the whole surrender idea of it. I'm a 12 stepper, so I'm a big believer in that. But there's many ways up that mountain. That's not the only one. So what helps this person deal with fear? Obviously, I would imagine part of the purpose of their addiction is coping with fear. Do they have any
Mhm.
other things that they do to help address that fear?
I mean, they come to their community health worker, they're seeking services, so they're actively
Hmm.
engaging and they're being honest with what they're really going through. And that takes a lot of courage.
Oh, 100%. 100%. If I had to say the two most necessary ingredients that she's going to need, honesty and persistence are probably the big two.
Mm-hmm.
And if the honesty's already there, that's a big thing. It's hard to be an honest addict,
Yeah.
active addict anyway. You either get tired of the use or you get tired of the lies, one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
So, so what I'm getting is, so if I were working with this person, one of the things I'd be thinking about is, so how do we address the fear? Because the fear is in the way.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do they do to help with fear, to help address that sort of fear? Are there supports that person has, external supports or internal supports, um, that they can deal with? How much of that fear is realistic, and how much of that fear is something they just may have told themselves a couple thousand times over again to the point where they believe it?
The caveat is that when you're unhoused
Hmm.
and now you have a substance abuse issue, and now you have custody of your children that you don't want to lose
Right.
because they're your everything, that's where the fear comes from. And I have to acknowledge, I understand your fear.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh no, it makes sense. It makes sense. You think about that, you love your kids so much, but that also puts pressure on you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So it's a flip side. I worked with a lady seeing her kids for visitation was a relapse trigger. She would see her kids and then she would relapse immediately afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So you would never tell her to not see her kids, but at the same
Right.
time, she had to sort of thread that needle. How is she going to be able to be okay?
Mm-hmm.
And is this someone that sounds like may have to go inpatient for this? Because I heard you say something about medical consequences.
I mean, based if she's having physical symptoms, I feel that it needs to be inpatient. So that's the fear where her kid's gonna go.
Hmm.
And it's like, is there outpatient treatment? But even then, she has her children. Where are they gonna go?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's like, how do you, in those type of situations where they're at preparation, but they can't do the action just yet? How do you support that?
Stay in preparation.
Okay.
Stay in preparation. We and I already copped to this. I'm guilty of this. I always try to move people out of preparation too quick.
Okay.
Because I want this, because that's what I want. Unfortunately, what I
Mm-hmm.
want doesn't really matter a whole lot. What I have seen is when people have a plan that they have faith in, they gain some energy and move forward. She is not going to take the next step forward until those things are situated.
Okay.
Whether it's going inpatient or outpatient, until there is some sort of plan where her kids are either going to be watched temporarily or there's some sort of situation. She's not going to do that. Now, the good news is you don't have to come up with that idea for her.
Okay.
You document the blueprint, but she's really going to make the blueprint. But your job is to keep her on that task, to keep her thinking about it. Because ultimately, that is going to be where things have to go. Because if she doesn't make a change, I mean, she could either get very sick or she could be dead, and then where are kids going to be?
Right.
I mean, that's the inevitable, outcome of a lot of these things.
Okay. Thank you. That's great advice.
So, good luck with that. That sounds, I know that's extremely, extremely difficult. And people's kids tend to be one of their biggest motivators for them to get
Hmm.
well.
Right.
But right, she needs to know that they're okay before she do the things that she needs to do for herself. But that's also, and there's your double-sided reflection. What a great double bind that is. Okay, well, you're not going to get well until your kids are okay, and your kids aren't going to be okay until you get well,
Yeah.
right? So how do
Hmm.
we move that? How do we move that going forward?
Hmm.
But let her do it. Let her talk about it. When she talks about change, go right there with her about it. If she talks about obstacles and barriers, you say, okay, well, what can we do about that? How can we address that so that we can move forward? And you just keep the conversation going. And from there, we'll derive the plan. We can't make her leave preparation for action until she's ready and she has a plan that she has faith in. And if you have the darn sheet, I would also darn would I think be good with her too. What's her desire, her ability, her reason, and her need? We already know her reason. Her reason are his kid or her kids, uh,
Hmm.
and her need to put that together, and then that might help as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Hmm. Any other questions about this, and about how you can apply, diagnosing change um, and then these actual steps so that you can help move people forward. I can't encourage strongly enough. If you want to, the book is in the references, and I'll show it at the end. The book is called Changing for Good, and it's a little paperback. And it's written kind of like a self-help book, so you can use it for yourself because within each of these stages, there's like three, four, or five little tasks that you have to overcome before you can move to the next one. So if you're going to use this book for yourself, which I definitely encourage, um, you'll find like was said before, somebody might be in contemplation, but I believe there's five tasks in contemplation. So where are you? Are you in like the early stage of contemplation at that first task, or are you at the point where maybe this lady we were just talking about is, where if we can solve this one situation, she may be ready to move out of this stage and move into the next.
And you're putting
All
that
right.
book in the chat.
Oh, you know what? I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up in fact, while I'm talking about it. It's the last one right here. And again, it's a little paperback. It's very easy to find. It's not expensive. Um, and again, it's written like a self-help book, so you can use it for yourself and you can also use it with your clients. I keep waiting for a new version of it to come out. There may be a newer one that's come out since, but I haven't seen it. Any other questions? Any other comments about any of these things that we've talked about so far?
So in the state in the contemplation, we're still trying to find, we're still trying to the pros and cons in that area.
Yeah, I think
And
that's
so
really where you do your best work. If you've got somebody who's in contemplation, that's when you're doing the payoff matrix. What are if we ask this lady that we were just talking about with her kids, um, because I mean, you can already hear just from the story, she loves her kids, she wants to make sure her kids are okay. But something about the addiction is stronger than that.
Mhm.
There's something that has an even more of a pull that she acts in a way that's endangering herself and her children. That's how powerful that is. So we ask the question, you know, what are the good parts and what are the bad parts? Because basically what we're getting at is what's getting you to use, what's maintaining this.
And if that continues week after, I don't know, for her, week after week after week after week,
Yeah.
just continue to go with that, and until, I mean, so once the skill building, we don't continue with the preparation, we gotta go contemplation, then the preparation.
To me, if she's in contemplation, then what I'm leaning on the darn,
The darn.
because I want to hear how bad does she want this? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much does she want to be sober? If on a scale of 1 to 10, how possible is it? How did, because my guess is she wants it, but she probably views it as impossible. The reason is her kids, and that's probably a 9 or a 10. I'd bet on that one right off the bat.
Mm.
And then need is urgency. Where's the have to on this? Winter's coming and you're going to be outside and homeless in really terrible weather. Um, if she's got a legal situation, she could end up getting locked up, and then where her kid's going to be, all that kind of stuff. So that's that piece where in motivational interviewing, you're always getting them talking about change. You're just eliciting and eliciting. The first couple stages, pre-contemplation and contemplation, we're really doing a lot more listening than talking. If anything, we're just guiding the conversation toward change. That's it. Preparation, now we're starting to get a little more involved and put a structure together. And then action and maintenance is when something's actually happening. As long as somebody's still in this sort of red and orange place, we're going to stay with them there because we can't leave them. We can't go out ahead of them. So these are more like the pre-action sort of stages. And it means that there's something they still need to do. There's work that hasn't been done yet. And that's something that's keeping the addiction around, or whatever the target behavior is. I'm saying addiction could be anything. And my guess is, I mean, think about this for yourself too. Aren't we here? Think about all the things that are going on in your life. We probably have a whole list of stuff that's in contemplation, things we're going to do sometime. We just haven't done it yet. And there's a very valid reason why it hasn't happened yet. And that's one of the underpinnings of motivational interviewing. Because you could say, well, look, this lady has to stop drinking. She's going to lose her kids. There's a valid reason why that hasn't happened yet. I don't know what it is, but it's at least as powerful as her desire to care for her children. And we got to get to that. Until we figure out what that thing is, she's just going to continue to cycle. And it doesn't mean she's going to break through it all at once, but she might make progress. Get a month sober, get 6 months sober. Again, that's that failing forward business. Any other questions or any other thoughts about anything we've talked about so far today? And actually, I know this is the last of these 6 sessions, so this is kind of a wrap up um, going forward. So any questions about any of the other things that we've discussed along the way regarding motivational interviewing techniques or any of that stuff? All right. Well, before we move into the closing piece, I just wanted to say thank you. I've really enjoyed working with you guys over this time. It's been a lot of fun. Uh, Joni is sorry that she couldn't make it. She had the nerve to take a vacation. Can you imagine? She deserved it. She needed it. We all do. And so she really wanted to be here, but we did not want to reschedule it because we got everybody in the habit. So we just wanted to say thank you. It's been great working with you guys. We've learned a lot doing this. We hope you've learned a lot as well. You know how to get a hold of us. I'm going to show you the contact information again at the end. Here are the materials. You'll be getting a recording of this. You'll also be getting a copy of the slides as usual. This is the survey information, so I appreciate it if you could um, fill that out. Any feedback you could give us would be wonderful. We're actually getting requests to do something like this again with other organizations, and would love to take what your experience has been and your feedback and take it forward. And I don't know, do you need the link in the chat, or does the link work? Can you work that right off the screen? I'm not much of a tech guy, so this stuff is a little beyond me.
Yeah, you got to put in the chat
Oh, okay.
for me at least.
Oop. Uh, if I hit this, is this thing going to disappear? I'm so afraid of tech. Ah, hang on a second. Let me get rid of that. All right. All right. And then again, if you have any questions about any of this later on, if you're like me and you have the question 5 minutes later, that part's fine. You've got my email here. The other link that's on here is the other trainings that are held through Rutgers. There are different versions of this training that are on there, so you can find this stuff on there. And this is Joni's contact information. And I think that's everything. All right. So again, I thank you for your time. I thank you for your energy. I thank you for your participation. And most of all, I thank you for your desire to do better by your clients who definitely deserve it. I thank you for the work you do, and I wish you all the best going forward. If there's other things that you want to learn about motivational interviewing, motivationalinterviewing.org is a great place to start. Or I would definitely grab the books that we recommended. I think that'll definitely help get you to, the next step. So we got a little bit of time left, but that's the material I have for today. So if you have any questions, please fire away. Otherwise, again, I thank you for your time and your attention, and I wish you all the best going forward. It's been nice working with all of you.